Welcome to the Skill Touch Disrupt podcast, where we dive into the world of innovation and technology. My name is Malika, and I'm the founder of Skill Touch, which is a recruitment company in the AI and technology space that operates across the globe. Today, I have with me Nikolai, who is the CTO at HumanSignal. He's here to discuss with us unveiling data labeling and curation in generative AI. As you all know, generative AI is definitely the big topic and discussion point for 2024. Nikolai, great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it would be great to really get an understanding a bit more about your background and what was behind sort of HumanSignal and your responsibilities there.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give you a quick intro of myself. So I finished PhD in computer science, namely studying how can we apply machine learning approaches to physical modeling, specifically for modeling human voice generation. So then after PhD, I was involved into industrial strained machine learning projects, specifically building AI applications and chatbots for large scale audience. And
Okay.
During the time, I learned a lot about how to make the AI successful versus like what's it left behind the scene behind the curtain, and which I believe makes up 90% of all data science projects nowadays, and even like before. So during the time, like together with my friends who were and who are very talented engineers and like very far-sighted entrepreneurs, we decided to build a startup, HumanSignal, to help folks like us to build their successful AI systems.
Okay, great. And you're all based in Europe, aren't you? Or some of you are in the US?
So we split across the globe. We are very scattered company. So some of the team reside in US, in the West Coast and East Coast, in Canada, South America, in Europe as well. So we are almost everywhere, covering all time zones.
Right. Well, tell us a bit more about your journey into the world of AI, and particularly within generative AI as well.
Sure. So, like as I said, when we explore how what data science routine consists of, and like what people struggle the most, we understood that the most critical piece in building AI systems residing in data, and like there is even very well-known term garbage in, garbage out that explains specifically the process of the building the AI model, like say ChatGPT or whatever else you think should be considered as AI model. So basically, when you start cooking your model and you aim to create a high quality model that's given some input, produce meaningful outputs, the critical ingredient here is how well you prepare your data. So you basically show to your model, okay, this is an image. This is what I expect you to recognize on this image. Or this is a text. That's how I expect you to answer this text. Mm-hmm. And then model starts to learn all of this stuff after you show very large batches of the data. And the critical piece here is, of course, how clean and how quality the initial examples that you show to the model are models. And yeah, that's how I come up with understanding that if we will not be able to close the gap in building the high quality data to feed into the model so-called training or learning process, we will not be able to build will not be able to build high quality AI systems that can perform on a real world task successfully. So that's like all my journey, and like that's all my struggles that I experienced thus far, and during my career, and that's how I started approaching this more holistically by start building the tools and the solutions for the people to work with their data.
All right, very cool. So with regards to, before we kind of dive deep into data curation and labeling, How would you sort of explain to someone who knows not much about the technology space within AI, like how would you explain what generative AI actually means?
Yeah, try. Let me try. However, like
Make
there is
it
no
simple
this
as
very
possible.
simple. Yeah. There is not a simple terms exist for generative AI. Even like many researchers right now trying to understand like what's constitutes to this, what actually it performs underneath, like in a nutshell. And like, let me know if my simple terms will not be the simplest ones. So like if we're talking about okay, let's first talk about AI, or what we call traditional AI system. So the traditional AI system, that the system that is able to make the inference or prediction based on your input data. For example, if you want to automate your customer support service and you have your you can collect these support tickets from your portal and then trying to understand what's the sentiment of this what customers request in this ticket. So it can be negative tone or can be positive tone. And what you're actually trying to accomplish is to attach the label to each individual ticket in the system, saying, okay, this guy is talking in a negative tone, this guy is talking in the positive tone. And then this is a process which is called annotation or labeling. And so after you create this data set, then you can train your sentiment classifier or traditional AI system that's is able to recognize based on the text what type of the sentiment. And what you can do then you can automate the routing process inside your company to direct some, for example, positive sentiment to this department, negative sentiment to this department. So this is a kind of like the simple example of what traditional AI was and is able to do. Then we approach the era of generative AI. So in generative AI, it doesn't differ too much, although there exists different explanations about what type of algorithm is used to build the classifiers, what type of architectures. Of course, they are bigger, they are more powerful, and so on and so forth. But in a general sense, there is no too much difference between how traditional AI and generative AI is trained and operated on input data. So it's all about getting the data and predicting the results. However, the nature of generative AI is slightly different. So instead of just being squeezed to this narrow scenario where the goal is to recognize one or two goals, like whether it's sentiment positive or negative, it can generate wide range of possibility. So it can basically generate any free-form text based on your input and not just answer you in one particular label, like whether it's positive or negative, but also explain you why it considers this particular text possess negative sentiment. And then this explanation can give you the further direction, like what to do with all this prediction. So it's basically it generates the text, or similarly it can generate the image based on your request, and that's why it has the name of generative AI. So yeah, and of course, like this generative nature of AI comes with more challenges about like what do we actually deal with this output. So before we definitely know that the generated outputs are constrained to only two labels, and now like generated output can be absolutely unconstrained. It can be whatever this AI model comes up with.
Right. And then so what about data curation labeling? What's that then within generative AI in particular?
Sure. Yeah, and the and here it comes actually. What do we think about data curation? So again, the very simplistic process of creating the data that's is basically the text and attached labels with respect to which sentiment is like the field of traditional AI, realm of traditional AI. Then when we go to the generative AI, the data curation process become very much more sophisticated compared to what we saw in traditional AI. So here we should answer the question: okay, what are the texts that generated out of the generative AI? Are there really achieving the goal that we are asking them for, or they are just generating some gibberish text that should be then considered as non-goal, non-target. So it's basically then the question is, okay, what we need to get out of the system, like where we apply the system to. So for example, I can give you an example a little bit different from the sentiment classification based on the ticket. So if we start building some like general knowledge retrieval system inside our enterprise, so basically we have the knowledge base about internal operations, about whatever we have internally, and we want to build a chatbot that helps our employees to extract the information and answer their question. For example, the new buy is onboarded, and then we need to explain what are the processes they need to follow. So this is like general knowledge retrieval system that typically built on, typically I'm calling it right now, built on top of the ChatGPT style application. So we basically get all this knowledge base into generative AI or large language models that can process the data, can extract the meaningful context based on what I'm asking and then can generate the text based on the content it retrieves. And this is like general knowledge retrieval system that's that can be deployed, that can be utilized within enterprises, or can be even utilized outside for the large scale applications like ChatGPT. And then coming back to the curation, like the curation piece here is very important, because in order to publish the system, even for our employees, we have to be sure that this system responds real meaningful questions, and not only meaningful, but the question that should not go outside of the something people are actually looking for. And here it comes to the idea that's the idea of the curation. So we should curate, we should understand what's the real output on the real inputs for this system. And definitely it's hard to understand without making the direct supervision from the human laborers or human experts, who should take a look and see what are the answers, evaluate them, understands that there are some pitfalls, there are some errors, and then having these errors collected, plug them back into the system so that the system can relearn back and can improve itself to serve for the better case scenarios.
Right. Okay, that's a really nice overview. Thanks for sharing that with me. Even I'm not as much as the expert as you are when it comes to sort of AI, so that's really useful. So from my understanding, I might be completely wrong here. So with regards to data curation versus generative AI, are we saying that one form of data curation is to do with sort of like the organization and like categorizing like some of the processes that need to be put in, or I mean, what's the difference?
So yeah, we can call the data curation as the entire data management process that is aimed to build the high quality training data for machine learning system, which includes not only the pure labeling, but also the organization, catalogization of the data, and ability to this data to be shown to the human annotators, and then capturing the human knowledge from these annotators and getting it to the machine learning pipelines, the workflows that are able to process this data and improve the system. So I would call like data curation is the more generic process that includes data labeling here. And data labeling is just like when I show you the text or images and ask you, okay, please attach this information to this text. So it's like the narrow use case of the entire workflow, which is called data curation.
Right. And why is that so critical then in terms of like being able to, organize and then accurately label that data for the training of AI models?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So why it's critical? Because actually it leads to many errors, and these errors can be can be of diverse criticality for what you consider your model should provide you for your users in production. So as I mentioned, like if you deploy your chatbot system, you should be 100% sure that it answers very reliably, and
Right.
it gives the right answers, and not only right answers, which can be considered by some users as trustworthy, but also non-biased answers, which is also a very important topic that we can dive into. So, for example, like the modern system like ChatGPT by OpenAI, they are training based on the workflow which is called reinforcement learning with the human feedback. So RLHF is a very common term nowadays used, and there exist many variant of this particular methodology. But it's all about, okay, here is the system, here is the human, and then we connect this system to the human so that the human actually can give the feedback, give the signal back to the system based on like what he or she considers as more trustworthy, less biased, more reliable out of the different answers that the system can provide. So in more simple terms, like the ChatGPT can, like instead of giving just one answer, it can give you two answers, and then it asks you, can you please choose what type of answers is more like less biased or more trustworthy, more reliable? And then after you choosing this answer, this signal collected from you and from the army of such annotators can propagate it back and can be used to improve the model further on. So this is like the way how nowadays generative AI systems are trained based on the human feedback, based on the human signal collected from out there. And again, like based on like what you insert to the system, you can start, for example, choosing actually biased answers, because like you are biased, because like this is human nature, so we are all biased, and like we can have some predispositions to the specific answers, and we start picking these answers instead of picking something else. And then the model it will not do them any magic. It will start learning after us what we are actually picking, what we are selecting. And then this bias, this total human bias, can be naturally introduced to the model, and the model start producing something that we may consider as not appropriate. And like a very good example why it is important, not even in the field of the producing harmful or biased answers, but also, so recently there was a release of OpenAI that actually improves the laziness, so-called laziness of the model. And it's a funny thing because because at some point ChatGPT's living system is like when people trying to constantly improve it, they introduce some wrong signals into it, and these wrong signals can be only observed at a large scale. And then at a large scale, like at the scale of the month, people start observing that ChatGPT actually give up to provide the full answers as it has provided before. And instead of like answering the full text, it answers very short text, complaining that I don't want to give you the full answer. You can make it up by yourself after my suggestion. So it's a so-called laziness by the model, and like the recent release tends to mitigate this laziness again by refining the initial data that ChatGPT was trained on. So I oversimplify, of course, the process how data science team specifically trying to remove and to improve the model. But in general, it all boils down to the ability to manage the data properly and to refine the data that is fed to the model and that the model can learn afterwards.
Right. Okay. No, thanks for that overview. So with regards to actually sort of like unpacking the data labeling a bit more then, so what are the sort of the common challenges that you face in the data labeling process?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, because like data labeling itself is also quite challenging process. So
Yeah.
I told you that in order to make the model work in the right way, we need to introduce this properly labeled data. But in order to prepare this properly labeled data, is also a very tedious process. So again, like humans are biased, and if I only ask one labeler to give this answer, this one labeler will definitely give me something that's maybe not considered as a consensus. So it can be, for example, one labeler can attach the positive sentiment because he's in great mood, and another one who is not in great mood, he can say, oh no, this text is actually negative, but actually they reflect their own state of mind, but not the reality of the text written there. So this is so-called the biased process, and in order to mitigate it, we need to build the data labeling workflow properly, so that they will, for example, one example of the text will not be annotated by one annotator, but by many annotators. And we can average those results to give more robust answer based on like 5 annotators giving, like 3 out of 5 annotators giving the positive sentiment. So we're likely to consider this as a positive sentiment rather than just relying on one annotator who gave the negative sentiment. So this is like consensus definitely is the key thing to build the reliable data labeling. And so, and another aspect is, of course, how in overall you are able to track the quality of the labeling process, because so the humans who are the labelers, they sometimes they can be subject matter expert, but sometimes they are like less aware subject matter expert, and there exists like more powerful subject matter expert who we call reviewers. So they control the work and they would supervise the work of the simple annotators, but they are more expensive, they're more costly. And then the question, okay, how we can optimize their workflow so that they can actually control only few examples after annotators, but still we can guarantee most of the quality after this labeling process. And again, like what exactly you need to label, like in your data, there might be very much of the many of the duplicates that you can present to your data labelers, and you actually waste the time of labeling. So we need to give you only the most meaningful examples to label, only the most complicated examples that really gives the information back to the model.
So how do you ensure the accuracy of that then? So obviously if humans are getting involved in that, how do you ensure it's accurate and reliable?
You mean like how do we show to them whether they are accurately labeled data, or how we infer the entire quality of the data set label?
How do you sort of ensure the accuracy of the data labels itself and just making sure they're reliable, especially with some of the tasks that it has to do and the sensitivity of that?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question, and like it's still very open area. So there is no such a thing as a ground truth. Like nobody knows like what's the ground truth, but we can say that if there is many signals that show that this answer is, so there are many signals that coincide together and presenting the same information, we can consider this as a ground truth. So like, for example, if my annotator gives the answer is positive, then this super cool subject matter expert also says that this more likely to be positive, and have like the army of the automated models that can also give me with some sense of the certainty that this the features of these texts expose the positive sentiment. Then I can say with like a very high probability, the high likelihood that this is the label that I can consider as a ground truth label. So there is no thing that we can reveal what's the real truth is, but we can build the process that's by merged together can give our statistical guarantees that with the most of the probability, this is a ground truth and this is very reliable thing. But again, it's still prone to errors, and still there is some risk that even after many different parties gives the same answer to the same data, there might be the risk that they are all biased, including the models, and the answer is actually on another side. But the more people, the more process involved into building these layers of the truth, the better and more reliable this output of the output data set we can create.
Right. Interesting. So what sort of tools and technologies are you sort of using, or you find the most effective when it comes to streamlining that anyway? So sort of streamlining the data labeling process.
Yeah, this is a great question, and I would again, I can be a little bit biased because like we're actually building such a tool
Nice to
that
use
helps people.
HumanSignal.
So yeah, we are building the platform and the open source project that is called Label Studio. That's empower people to annotate the data in the most effective way, in the most efficient way. So by efficiency, we mean that like first, you should not think about the tools when you label the data. You should be 100% focused on what you're trying to analyze, what the image in front of you or what the text, and how quickly you can apply the data. So actually, even single clicks matter. So like if you spend more clicks on annotating the data, it turns out it will sum up to the many hours waste of your time waste and that you can actually spend on annotating more. So we really strive to build a system that gives you very efficient process, and not only working with a single type of information like text or images, but we give you the tool and that you can where you can combine many different input signals, many different modalities, many different ways how you um, how you kind of cross-pollinate these modalities all together, and how you can attach the different type of the label, different type of the human knowledge to these modalities. Let's say, for example, I want to classify this text, but I also want to supply the text with my explanations, but I also want to supply my explanation to each particular piece of the text that I need to mark up. Or, for example, if I work with the video information, I want to select some particular objects and track them over time, and also attach some category labels to these objects. There are many possibilities how you can combine, and there is no exist the tool that give you all the possibilities in hand. So that's why we built the tool, where we build the interface where you can construct, same as like you building the website, you can quickly construct and come up with your scenario, very flexible, very customizable to your particular needs, and like even interface can be customized so that it become the pleasant and hence very efficient for annotators.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that overview. So, what about ethical considerations? Because I know that, that's going to be something that plays on people's minds. So, how do you sort of address ethical pieces when it comes to biases and privacy within data labeling?
Yeah. There, when it comes to the ethical consideration, it's always it highly relates to the question like who is annotator, like what type of the like demographical distribution you have, and like how you can explain what are the decision making process behind the scene. And again, it's a very complicated process. So the way how we approach this is by giving you all the ways to understand what the cohort, what type of the users annotate this data, how they perform over time. So sometimes, like for example, they can give you one answer at one time, which is like one answer in the one time, and completely controversy answer after a while, like, and give a completely different answer. And then we give you the ability to track this information down in a time and explain you, okay, this guy may be a little bit biased towards his decision. Maybe we need to investigate more, or we need to attach more quality control on top of the labels, on top of the data he produces. So, and that's why I think the ethical consideration comes down to the ability to not only give you the tools and the dashboards that's where you can explore the quality of the data, but also give you the ability to explore what your users are doing, how they're doing, and like what type of distributions of their decision-making process what type of the charts on top of their decision making process you can show up to the who is actually controlling this bias mitigation and ethical who has some ethical concerns on top of like what data is produced on the tools. So yeah, to summarize, I think it's ability to track and to visualize decision making process of annotators is the key tool to for the ethical considerations in data labeling. However, it doesn't solve the ethical consideration. The solving this is an ongoing problem, and we still have very much open questions with regards to like what type of the policy controls and regulations which should attach to it.
Right. So yeah, I wanted to add to that. So in terms of regulation, then what developments would you foresee that will sort of impact data labeling and generative AI?
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting topic right now, because right now everyone is concerning about data privacy, and data privacy is actually when you can find the data that you don't want to be found. You can find like your private sensitive data, personal information in the training data sets. And one of the funny story, again back to was spoken news, is like some of the jailbreaks, like the ability to reveal some hidden information from the ChatGPT style system, is the case for jailbreaking this system was like when the people start typing the word, for example, organization, and asking ChatGPT to repeat it 100,000 times. After a while, it starts just generating some personal information. Like it's after repeating 100 times for organization, it starts revealing some personal information, and it was quickly fixed. But that's exactly the case when the personal information that definitely exists in this large scale, like vast amount of the training data that's ChatGPT and any other LLM is built on top of, starts surfacing to the end users, and nobody wants that. Nobody wants to expose any personal information, even if it will be exposed to someone who will not be used it for the bad things. But anyway, like the personal information should be somehow should not be disclosed. And how the people approaching this, so they put a lot of regulation, a lot of compliances, how we need to manage this information. But the thing is that when it comes to the data labeling process, it's hard to give you full data privacy, because the nature of data labeling process is to show the data to some end users who are data labelers, so that they can annotate, they can see what is exactly happening in the data, and then they can attach the labels. And they essentially see all the private personal information if it contains in the initial data sources. So how and like these regulations by themselves will not allow people to build completely data private system when it comes to the training data set creation.
Mm-hmm.
But it gives it gives specifically to us the ability to build the workflows where we can guarantee that data remains private to any third parties who are trying to annotate the data. So specifically, we're like, for example, we are transferring the data only. We don't have any specific transfers in the data. We're giving the data right in front of the browser, right in front of the eyes in the browser of the human annotators who sitting inside the networks of the people. So we care a lot about how data remains private for the end user, who are the large enterprises who really care, and teaching them how to establish the workflows that can help them to keep the data private without losing it and to the third parties, and without exposing it, and still being able to introduce this human knowledge and human signals into the data in terms of the labels.
See what happens there, because again, they've been trying to regulate their ChatGPT stuff for a while, haven't they? They keep talking about, especially in the US. They keep trying to but then the thing is, the people that are trying to regulate it, they're not the experts when it comes to building the technology itself. It's people that know nothing about AI.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, and like that's one of the big problem. Like because like we are kind of handing off the the operations to the people. Like someone is creating this regulation who knows something about data privacy, but they don't know about the process, and
Right.
then handing off to the people who know about the process, but they are not very concerned about data privacy because they are, for example, small startups and they want to build their the things faster. They don't care about where to put the data, and they just put it somewhere. So we definitely need to more symbiotic ecosystem of the tools, of the people and the processes that helps everyone to on the one hand to stay compliant and to stay secure and not to break the rules of the world, and on another side to not to slow down the technology and let people to build the things faster as they can.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so true. What trends and technologies are you most excited about with regards to data curation and labeling?
I personally very excited, and I think I share that with many folks in the community in what is it called, like the next generation of of the generative AI. So right now we are able to use LLM as a tools to generate the text, and these texts are very high quality. So essentially they give us the ability to generate whatever we want to, and like this ability to control the system is very functional. It's like what makes this most success of the such system, ability to kind of ask the thing and get these things back. And now it's a question, okay, what we can build on top of this process, of this, the process of steerability of these models. And then the technology that is currently called as the agents, so is actually what we can call as an actionable piece of generative AI. So again, LLMs themselves, they are nothing but generating the next word, predicting the next word in the text. So if I just go to ChatGPT and type simply generate, it starts generating absolutely senseless information. It's just generating the text, talking like word by word, and it's generating without any stop. And that doesn't give us too much of the actionable scenario what we want to. What we want to is we want to interact with a very complex system. Again, coming back to example of the building very smart customer service portal, we want to let the system operate mostly autonomously by means of analyzing the text written by customers, rerouting these tickets to the right department. Maybe in this department also will be some AI systems that can refine the answers or make some other actions based on the database existing in this department. So there might be some huge complex system of interconnected things, which is called agents, that can be they can provide the real value to the company as it all. So, for example, the real value might be, okay, we don't need too much of the people working manually on analyzing tickets. Now we can increase the value for our customers by answering all this, helping them right away without waiting and without paying too much to someone who is going to answering all the time. So automation is the holy grail for the companies, and the agents is actually the tools and like technology that can help us to automate it. So building the data agents in general that helps people to automate the process based on generative AI, based on some classical technologies like the database APIs and so on, and connecting all the things together so that it can operate autonomously is the very hot topic area, which I really love diving into, and definitely applying that to automation in what we are working on in a data labeling space is also very promising. So like basically, instead of just managing the army of notators and explaining your workflows, we can simply tell to the system, please make your best decision how you would annotate this data, and build the quality dashboards on top of it. And this system will start acting autonomously, and only at the time when the system is the most uncertain, we can get back and we can suggest something that we consider is better or worse. So
Great.
I think, that's to summarize. Data agents, I think it's the most exciting area for me, especially. And we are also actively working in this space.
Exciting. So, for our listeners that are listening to this to get some insight with regards to data curation, labeling, with regards to generative AI, what advice would you sort of give them with regards to them exploring and maybe contributing to this?
And this is very simple. Like
use HumanSignal.
yeah. It's like first just try it out. Like the practical approach is like the most successful approach to learn something new and to understand how it works and understand how it can help you to accelerate your technology, your routine, and helps you in your business or like even in daily life. So try it out. The abstraction the generative AI gives us, so basically like now you don't need even to learn the code. Like the most powerful coding language right now is just English. So if you can speak English, then you can go and ask OpenAI to build something for you. Or you can even like build your own chatbots with the help of all these fascinating tools that exist in the ChatGPT ecosystem, like GPTs. I'm referring to GPTs. But then, if you understand how it works, if you understand that it suits your business or personal needs, then you can go further and you can start building your own version of the LLMs, or maybe even like image generators, by going and exploring the vast majority of the ecosystem tools, for example, on the Hugging Face. And again, like when you get to the point of now I know like how the system is behaving. I know what you need to what I want to accomplish. Then the question is, okay, what I can make out of the existing models, which can be considered as general purpose models, to steer them to my specific task. And that's your kind of final destination will be, okay, now I need to get and label the data, and this labeled data can actually give me my version of the generative AI that I can introduce in production. So to summarize, I would suggest like explore, start building, and then understand the data-centric journey of building the generative AI and the importance of this, and then come to us, and then we can help you.
Great. Thank you so much, Nikolai. Really appreciate it. I mean, if there was anything you want to add now, feel free to do so. But otherwise, it's been so nice to have you on here.
Yeah, me too. It was a real pleasure and very interesting conversation. And yeah,
I learned quite a bit here, so really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.